Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hey, folks, today is Tuesday, June 18, 2024. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network in Florida. The Florida Democratic Party, they've got 140 candidates running all House positions. We'll talk with the chair of the party, Nikki Freed, about how they are fighting back in the Sunshine State. Also on today's show, Vice President Kamala Harris joined rapper Quavo in Atlanta for a conversation about public policy. We'll show you what some of that took place. Also, MAGA folks say it's going to be white boy summer. Didn't we tell y'all that Charlie Kirk was racist? Oh, that turning point fool is showing his true colors. Also, the New York pastor, known as the Bling pastor, well, he ain't going to be having much bling for the next 9 years because he's going to federal prison. It is time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got whatever the piss he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to
folks, the only problem when you do a show, you're 2 blocks from the White House, you get stuck in motorcades. So all of these streets in downtown D.C. Are blocked right now because President Biden is in this motorcade as we speak. So that's why I am not in the studio. So it's like a parking lot out here. So just so y'all know what's going on here. So I'll be in studio soon. But yeah, that's what happens when you're located 2 blocks from the White House. All right, let's get right to it. The DNC chair, Jamie Harrison, was in Florida today, standing with the state Democratic Party chair, Nikki Freed, as they talked about the fact that they've recruited candidates and running all 140 wide House races in Florida. This is a huge development because Florida has been a difficult place for Democrats in the past several election cycles. It's been grossly underfunded. It's been unorganized. And Nikki Freed, the last Democrat elected statewide, is trying to change that. She joins us right now. Welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered, Nikki. For people who don't understand, we've talked about Florida, Tennessee, and so many places. One of the reasons Democrats have been getting killed, or Republicans have a supermajority, is because a lot of these candidates have been running unopposed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Roland, it's not that they're just running unopposed. It's a fact that the Democrats are then leaving. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean to the voter? It means that they don't have somebody to hold the Republicans accountable. It means that they don't have the messaging on the ground, that there are choices for not just Democrats, but for independents. And so this was a really, really big deal. It hasn't happened in over 30 years. So the Democratic Party of Florida not only fielded every congressional race, every House race, every Senate race. And so that is just a monumentous shift from November 2022 when everybody counted us completely out. So this is a really big deal. First time that's happened in 30 plus years. Republicans have never had this happen. So that's why the chair was here, Jamie Harrison, to celebrate some of these movements here in Florida.
So what happened? Obviously, you took over as chair, but what happened that where you began to travel? Were you recruiting candidates? So walk us through how you got to this point.
I got to this point by realistically looking at the last few cycles. And I'm looking at the social media from 2022, where we left, I think, like 39 seats open. And then you look back at even from 2018 and 2016, all the way back to 2000, where in 2000, we had left open something like 21 seats between Congressional, House, Senate. And if each of those seats had been filled and sent 19 more Democrats to the polls, Al Gore would have been president. We only lost here in Florida in 2000 by 537. So when I started seeing that there was a lot of pressure on the Democratic Party in each of these cycles to fill seats, I knew that part of our game plan to take back and to win our state means that we had to do things differently. We had to energize it differently. We had to make sure in a time when the Republicans have taken us into such an extreme direction, whether it is the 6-week abortion ban, it is the whitewashing of our history, of getting rid of AP African American studies, going after DEI, having the highest teacher shortage, all at the same time having the highest inflation in the nation. All of these things going on when our property insurance has gone through the roof, 400% increases since DeSantis took over. They just eliminated climate change from our Florida statutes. So we have to hold the Republicans accountable. And so I came in and I said, how do we do this differently? And I put out a challenge within the first 6 weeks of my administration that we're going to fill every seat. And so we took that plan, revamped our entire campaign program inside of the party, which has typically not even been doing candidate recruitment. It's been kind of like maybe throwing some extra dollars at a candidate, coordinating a little bit with their team, but not really a real true methodology. So we had an incredible person come on board, and I gave her this mission. And I said, but not only are we going to recruit in every part of our state, but you've also probably, not just here in Florida, but across the country, don't rely on the party. Don't rely on the party. They're not going to be there for advice, for resources, for anything. And I wanted to change that culture. And so we did things things differently by making sure that we've got resume banks and resource guidance and trainings of compliance and messaging guidance. We've been having every single month an all candidates call. And so we put out billboards beginning part of this year in typical red areas about our desire to fill seats in every single seat. We leaned in on a lot of our grassroots teams, a lot of our coalition partners between the House caucus and the Senate caucus, our women's organizations, our environmental caucus, our education caucus, our teachers union. And we told them our challenge, that we are challenging you all to help us fill every seat. And that's what we did. We were on the phones with candidates, helping them with paperwork, recruiting candidates locally. And Friday at 12 o'clock, we accomplished what people thought would have been absolutely unimaginable after November of 22.
So one of the things that I have said repeatedly is that, one, you can't win a House, you can't win the Senate, you can't win the governor's mansion until, well, obviously, you run candidates. Two, to break down the supermajority, you got to, first of all, win critical races. So let's say you may not take over the House or the Senate, but you then, let's say you reduce that supermajority, now all of a sudden they have to negotiate with Democrats. The reality right now is in Florida, in Mississippi, in Alabama, in Tennessee, in Texas, so many places, they don't even need to talk to Democrats because they got a supermajority.
Yeah. And you know, Roland, somebody said to me, I don't remember. It was one of our Tennessee three, Jones, was at last weekend. We had him speaking at the Florida Democratic Party Black Caucus weekend conference. And first of all, he took us to church that night. I've seen, and I'm sure all of you have seen, and you've seen, Roland, a gazillion and one keynote speeches. I have never seen a keynote speech like this. I had tears of laughter, tears of joy, tears of sadness, all emotions that Rep. Jones took us through that night. But one of the interesting parts that he said is that you know how democracy is working by looking at the South, where we've seen the gerrymandering, we've seen the voter suppression, we have seen the whitewashing, we've seen all of these laws on the books. And so when democracy is not working in the South, it means democracy is not working. And so it is really, really important that, yes, to get us out of that super minority, so yes, they can start to negotiate with us. It also prevents, for governor veto overrides if there was a bill that the Democrats were supporting one way or the other. It's making sure that there's rules that they're going to have to go back to the Democratic caucus in order to get rules passed. It is essential for us to get out of the super minority, but it's also essential that you can't win seats if you don't even play in the game. And so it was really important because it not only helps the top of the ticket by returning out more voters, but it forces the Democrats to go into communities where we haven't been playing and we haven't had a presence. So that means that every single issue is going to have a Democratic value perspective when you're talking at the doors, when you're going into these communities and showing up. Because if you don't show up during a campaign, then why should people come out and vote? And so it was important that we have a very diverse slate. And that we are competing in all parts of our state, even in an R+50 seat, because that's how gerrymandered our state is, that we've got seats like that. It is still important for those Democrats and those independents. And there is a lot of Republicans who aren't MAGA that want their party back. And as long as Democrats are showing up and talking about the kitchen table issues that really transcend partisan politics, is going to give us an opportunity to change the narrative on the ground, make the Republicans not only spend money, but have to defend their record here. What the DeSantis administration and these Republican legislators have done to our state is unconscionable. And now we're giving people in our state options and hope.
Sure, somebody would say, wait a minute, an R+50, why in the hell would you even spend those resources? But wasn't there just a special election, I think was in Ohio, where the person, Republican, barely won, and that was in a very competitive seat Republicans controlled?
Yeah. You know, and everything is possible. We even saw that in a Miami-Dade seat last December. We had a special election in Miami-Dade. DeSantis won the seat by like 34 points, give or take. The candidate in November 22 also won by like 32. It was a special election. Our candidate lost by 500 votes. And we only spent $1,500 on the race from the party perspective. But 500, that was a 30-point swing. And so realistically, all of these seats that are R+7, even sometimes 10, when we've got a state that has 1/3 as independent at this point, and those independents are breaking for Democrats in Florida, 65, 70%. We saw that in that race that I'm just talking about. We saw it in the mayor's race, which actually, I don't know if you remember, Roland, I was in your studio the night of that mayor's race and didn't even know that we had won the seat because we were live in studio until I got out. Yep. But we won that by having not only Democratic turnout, but also getting the independents to break for us. And we won a special election this year in the central part of our state that the Republicans have been holding on. The last Democrat to win this House seat was past Senator Nelson when he was in the Florida House. And so this was a seat that no one expected us to win, and we flipped it by almost 10 points. And that's why these matter. And going back to the analogy I was telling you earlier, and from the 2000s, in those races where there probably was an R+30 seat and no candidate there, there are still Democrats in that seat. And so if you just are able to turn out a couple extra more independents and Democrats in those seats, not only does it help the ballot initiatives, which we've got both cannabis legalization and abortion on our ballot, but it also helps our U.S. Senate race, take out Rick Scott. It helps the top of the ticket, and it forces Republicans to play in Florida and all parts of our state. That they can't now use their resources to go and take out some of our other seats. They've got to keep their resources at home. And look, you know, we're not saying to these candidates, expect huge financial investment into your seats. These candidates know what they are the pitch hitters. They understand, you know, what their role is in the greater metrics and in the puzzle that is being put together in Florida. Every seat matters. Every voter matters. And this is one of those elections that if we don't do everything possible in Florida to show that we are still considered a swing state, just because we haven't been able to show it at the ballot box doesn't mean that the people of the state aren't frustrated with the chaos and the extremism that have come from the Republicans.
All right. Nikki Freed was certainly appreciated. And look forward to being in the Sunshine State come the fall when it comes to election season.
Well, we certainly appreciate all that you do for keeping American democracy alive and well. I hope you find your way. I've been stuck in that motorcade traffic before, so hopefully you find your way into the studio soon, and it's moving soon. But I appreciate it.
So I'll be inside in about 2 minutes.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on tonight, Roland, and truly thank you for all that you do, especially obviously in the Black space.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, be well, folks. When we come back, we'll check with our panel about this and some other issues as well. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. Back in a moment.
Hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Bishop William J. Barber II, co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, and president of Repair to the Breach. And I'm calling on you to get everybody you know to join us on Saturday, June 29th at 10 o'clock a.m. in Washington, D.C. on Pennsylvania and 3rd for the mass Poor People's Low-Wage Workers Assembly and Moral March on Washington and to the polls, and the post effort to reach 15 million poor and low-wage infrequent voters who, if they vote, can change the outcome of our politics in this country.
Our goal is to center the desires and the political policy agenda of poor and low-wage persons, along with moral religious leaders and advocates. Too often, poor and low-wage people are not talked about, even though in this country today there are 135 million poor and low-wage persons. There's not a state in this country now where poor and low-wage persons do not make up at least 30% of the electorate.
It is time that the issues of poor and low-wage people be at the center of our politics. Living wages, health care, things that matter in the everyday lives. We will no longer allow poverty to be the fourth leading cause of death in this country. We must let our voices be heard. Join us. Go to our website, www.poorpeoplescampaign.org. RSVP. Get others to come. Get a bus. Get a van. Get on the train. Come and let our voices be heard and our votes be felt. Lift from the bottom so that everybody rises.
A lot of y'all have been asking me about the pocket squares that we have available on our website. You see me rocking the Shibori pocket square right here. It's all about looking different. Now look, summertime is coming up. Y'all know, I keep trying to tell fellas, change your look, please. You can't wear athletic shoes every damn wear. So if you're putting on linen suits, if you're putting on some summer suits, have a whole different look. The reason I like this particular pocket square, the Shibori, is because it's sort of like a flower and looks pretty cool here versus the traditional boring silk pocket squares. But also I like being a little different as well. So this is why we have these custom-made feather pocket squares on the website as well. My sister actually designed these after a few years ago. I was in this battle with Steve Harvey at Essence, and I saw this at a St. Jude fundraiser. I saw this feather pocket square, and I said, well, I got some ideas. So I hit her, and she sent me about 30 different ones. And so this completely changes your look. Now, some of you men out there, I had some dudes say, oh, man, I can't wear that. Well, if you ain't got swagger, that's not my problem. But if you're looking for something different to spruce up your look, fellas, ladies, if y'all looking to get your man a good gift, I've run into brothers all across the country with the feather pocket squares saying, see, check mine out. And so it's always good to see them. And so this is what you do. Go to RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. You can order Shibori pocket squares or the custom-made pocket squares. Now, for the Shiboris, we're out of a lot of the different colors, and I think we're down to about 200 or 300. So you want to get your order in as soon as you can, because here's what happened. I got these several years ago, and the Japanese company signed a deal with another company, and I bought them before they signed that deal, and so I can't get access to any more from the company in Japan that makes them. And so get yours now. So come summertime, when I see y'all at Essence, y'all could be looking fly with the Shibori pocket square or the custom-made pocket square. Again, RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. Go there now.
Now streaming on the Black Star Network.
It was my junior year at Georgetown, and Spike calls me and he says, Malcolm, what are you doing next year? So, graduating, you know? He said, take a year off, work on Malcolm X. I said, okay.
But first of all, for the folks who don't know, Spike is
my cousin. Spike is my cousin.
Just for the person watching, like, how the hell is Spike just gonna tell you that?
It's true. It's true.
Farquhar, executive producer of Proud Family.
Bruce Smith, creator and executive producer of The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. And you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
right, folks, our panel for today, Candace Kelly, legal analyst, South Orange, New Jersey. Dr. Larry J. Walker, assistant professor, University of Central Florida. Joining us from Orlando, Joy Chaney, founder of Joy Strategies, Washington, D.C. Glad to have all three of you here. Larry, I'm going to start with you. You're there in the Sunshine State. First of all, let's just be real clear. Democrats in Florida have been an absolute mess, I would say, in the last 6, 8, maybe 10 years. I mean, it's been awful. It used to be a purple state. Used to be a blue state, then became a purple state. Now it's ruby red because, frankly, you've had a party infrastructure that has been awful. So the work that Nikki Freed had before her was huge because you literally are trying to rebuild it brick by brick.
Roland, I was really pleased to see you have her on. She's done a fantastic job. Let's give her a lot of credit in a short period of time and really turn this around. I know originally when she, was elected, she talked a lot about, competing in every state election. And, usually that takes some time. And so, Roland, it's important to note that Florida is one of the most racially, ethnically diverse states in the country. It also has a lot of significant number of immigrants. And so there's a lot of potential there. And as you said, Florida used to be a purple state, but is ruby red. And we have to kind of think about, in terms of the CRT, challenge and right now in the courts and some of the other anti-LGBTQ plus legislation is passed. All these issues may have never happened. Once again, you talked about this issue related to supermajority. If Democrats had done a better job over the last several years in running competitive elections, like I said, at the state level. But, it is certainly an accomplishment. I think the other thing that is important, Roland, as it relates to, use the phrase brick by brick. And I was just talking to a colleague the other day, is that the financial investment now may not reap this election cycle. But if you continue to invest in the state of Florida for 8, 12 years from now, it will. And then we'll look back at this period of time and talk about the importance of investing, identifying, competent individuals to run against Republicans, but also making that initial financial investment. So this has to be kind of like seen as like you putting, investing, by purchasing an IRA and really thinking about what the benefit will be 5 or 10 years from now.
But see, one of the things that obviously getting people to run is one thing, but also winning is another. That's why, Joy, listening to what Nikki said, it was a multi-pronged strategy in terms of messaging. And also when you talk about raising money, one of the things that happened is that, what Democrats did, it was in Florida, the same thing they did in Texas. They literally would come in, raise a ton of money, and then bounce. And the money would not stay in the state. You got to have that money come back to the state in order for it to be competitive.
Correct. First of all, Nikki needs to be replicated across the country, at the DNC, everywhere. It is that kind of grassroots. I remember a couple of months ago, we were talking to someone from Virginia. I think it was the head of the head of the Democratic Party there. And he was saying, once again, you have to do brick by brick, election by election, district by district, the slow method. Everyone has to run their own race. We have to be in it to win it, that whole thing. When I worked at the DNC, there was a view that we were running from dog catcher to president of the United States. And somewhere along the way, we lost that, right? Like we were almost too good to run in every race, or that we had to win every race. And Larry, the only thing I would say is we're going to see dividends on this election. It may not end up being that we win every one of those races, but the American people, and including the Democrats in Florida, need to see that someone is fighting for them. That is one of the frustrations that people have with Democrats, is that we almost seem too polite to fight, not to be scrappy. Meanwhile, we have Donald Trump out there saying, I'm your retribution. We have obviously a party that is fighting for us, and they're fighting in every seat, be damned whether it's going to win. But they're willing to put in some modicum of effort in every seat. And I'm excited about it. I'm a Floridian. I'm thrilled to see it. And I think that, it will automatically result in additional seats. It just has to.
One of the points that she made, I really thought was important here, Candace, and that is when we talk about forcing Republicans to have to spend money. When you know you're guaranteed to win, then you can take those millions and spend elsewhere. I mean, look, it's the same thing when Larry Hogan decided to jump in the race for the United States Senate. Democrats thought they had a lock, if you will. That now means they're going to have to spend money, time, and resources in Maryland that they otherwise could be spending in places like Ohio, Montana, Nevada, and Arizona. And so that's really one of the things I think we're looking at here as well. Florida could be a competitive state like it used to, but it can never happen unless you have infrastructure, unless you build it.
That's right. And the infrastructure and the building is really happening right now. And like the other panelists have said, maybe something may not happen immediately, even though there are 11 people who have won the race because they are running unopposed. But even with that in mind, planting these seeds is very important. And as you said, if you have the money, you have to put it somewhere in order to make a point and boost the morale. I mean, listen to how excited the Floridians on this panel are feeling about their state today. And that's for a reason. Part of it is just going to be morale building. Does anybody care about us in Florida? There's some interesting things on the ballot, of course, when it comes to rights of people using cannabis, when it comes to abortion rights. So I think that the people will go to the polls as long as they see somebody working for them. But the money's going to be thin because they have to put it all in this process. And what an amazing, accomplishment that Nikki has had in pulling all of this together. She should write a book, because this is when you're talking about at this grassroots level, you are really talking to people one-on-one to explain to them how you're going to get behind them and telling them it may not be much. And they might have started from ground zero in some of the positions, and it may not be much, but at least there's some support. And I think that that's the takeaway from all of this, that those who are running, those 140 people who are running, they have support. May not be a lot of money, but next year or with the next elections, there will be more money. And the election after that, there will be more money because the seed is planted.
Oh, absolutely. All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. Got to go to break. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. The Bling pastor, he going to prison. We'll talk about that and more when we come back right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support us in what we do. Be sure to join the Brina Funk Fan Club. So when you're checking money, order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037 7-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo's RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, Dexter Jenkins is a faith-based financial mentor with more than 20 years in the financial services industry. He's passionate about helping families build generational wealth.
Even though I'm talking about things like prayer, I'm talking about things about reading the word, I'm talking about things like fellowship, I'm talking to members who are dealing with losing their houses, or I'm talking to members who, because of a lack of the handling their finances, they're working 2 and 3 jobs. And so what I'm finding is that they're not coming to church because they don't have a handle on their finances.
We're talking how to get wealthy through faith and our finances on the next Get Wealthy right here, only on Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Jamia Pugh. I am from Coatesville, Pennsylvania, just an hour right outside of Philadelphia.
My name is Jasmine Pugh. I'm also from Coatesville, Pennsylvania.
You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
The Justice Department is intervening in lawsuits out of Ohio and Alabama over laws that make it a felony for someone other than a postal worker or close relative to handle someone's absentee ballot. In the Ohio filing, attorneys say the 2023 law violates federal law because it restricts people with disabilities from having equal access to cast absentee ballots. The DOJ is charged with enforcing the Voting Rights Act, which requires states to
avoid discriminating against voters with disabilities. The ACLU's lawsuit was filed on behalf of an Ohio resident who has muscular dystrophy, a disease that renders her unable to drive. She doesn't have an outgoing mailbox at her apartment, and her mother lives 30 minutes away and also has health issues. This right here, Candace, is important because Republicans have been doing all they can to restrict people and their access to voting. And this is one of the issues that they've been passing these laws. And so hopefully this is going to be successful for the Department of Justice.
And not only this hopefully will be successful, but the plan is already there. They already have a way to deal with people to vote with absentee ballots. It's just a matter of opening the door and having an open mind to make sure that they can go through those doors properly. It really just doesn't make any sense because it's so restrictive that they're just not following laws that are already on the book when it comes to those people who are disabled. And then, of course, we are talking about millions and millions of votes when we talk about the disabled community. So this is something that a lot of people have their eye on. But when we talk about the military, when we talk about people who aren't present, the system is in place. We just have to make sure that those who are disabled are included in that system is already there. It's not that hard. It's just something that Republicans are trying to fight because, well, that's what they do. They try to fight what makes the most common sense.
Larry, voting, the battle over voting. This is one of those laws. Somebody may say, well, you know, this is about protecting, you know, the access. But what's so stupid here, laws literally say that, yeah, your parent, your sibling can't drop your absentee ballot off. That's just dumb.
Yeah, it is. And this is, you know, we know this is really about, you know, preventing certain demographics from voting. And it's also important why VRA is so important and why, you know, we continue to see folks, you know, try to dismantle it, why they're trying to do that, because they understand that, first of all, Roland, we absolutely have to make sure everyone has access to voting, whether it's absentee, et cetera. And so, you know, these laws in particular are designed to, you know, limit, to make sure you curtain, like I said, certain demographics, keeping those percentages numbers down and depress the vote. Let's be clear about what this is really about. But it's important, once again, whether we talk about VRA or ADA, to make sure individuals with various, you know, various challenges have the ability to vote and participate in our democracy. And so these attempts to make it more difficult is not consistent with what, you know, what we've heard for years in this country about, you know, it's important at least every person have at least one vote. So I'm hopeful that this is resolved at the court level. But the reality is we shouldn't be in this situation. But this is, once again, Roland, this is part of a concerted effort to depress the vote. We have to be really clear what this is about. And once again, you know, not being consistent, like I said, VRA and various other laws when it comes to individuals who have various challenges.
Joy?
Absolutely. So the only other thing I would add is that this is also why elections matter. The DOJ is able to file these lawsuits. They're there. They're defending what we have left of the Voting Rights Act and other voting rights laws. You need people in power who are willing to give pause to those who would seek to disenfranchise us and to use every possible means to still do so. So when you think about, like, you know, what does the Biden-Harris administration do for me? This is part of that litany of activities that maybe you don't think about when you go to the voting booth, but you absolutely should be thinking about. Who is enforcing our nation's laws? Who is giving pause to those who are seeking to violate our nation's laws, and hope that if they just flood the system with as many violations as possible, there's just no way we can keep up with them. And even if we do keep up with them, but it'll happen after the election, they have models to make sure that they can do this. We have to get in front. So that is why it is so important to vote. Voting rights are on the ballot.
Yep, they are on the ballot. And again, understand, they want to stop folks from voting. We just need to understand exactly what's going on here. Folks, after Donald Trump embarrassed himself by lying in a black church on Saturday, he spoke at Turning Point USA's People Convention. Now, first of all, let's be real clear. They have the convention in the Detroit Convention Center, and they were attacking the very people by saying, oh, theft was going on here. This was the crime scene in 2020. At that event, of course, Trump ally Jack Posobiec, of course, who was a nutcase, and a staffer walked out on stage to unveil a white boy summer flag. Look at these idiots.
From evil.
Well, this is no shock that that took place there because lead racist is the leader of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk. This is the same fool who attacked Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., saying he should not have a federal holiday. This is the same idiot who also said that, I'm going to think twice about flying on a plane with a black pilot because they don't have their qualifications, and on and on and on. There have been racists who have been busted in Turning Point USA, and so it has been a breeding ground for white nationalists. Here is the reality here, Joy, and that is Donald Trump opened this door. He made it very comfortable, going back to when he announced his election, for the racists to come out and say whatever they want and there be no repercussions. That's what you're seeing here.
That's correct. He is the fire that are lighting the matches of something ugly that has always existed in America. This is no surprise. He didn't make it happen, but he has ignited it, and he's made it okay. He's normalized it, or rather, with the exception of this network, sometimes the media has normalized it. This is not normal to see these people at this pitch level doing this, recorded on TV, sending a signal that not only is this okay, but this is the kind of stuff that you ought to do, not just here, but in your hometown, in your schools, et cetera. But you know what? I'm glad they recorded it. I'm a Democrat. I can't believe our luck. We ought to be taking this and showing it to every ad, in every fundraiser corner that we are seeking to get white independent voters and voters of any race who feel like they're not sure if it makes a difference who's in office. Guys, you are electing white supremacists. And so when it comes to white supremacy, you're either with them or you're not. This is a which side are you on moment. Are you with white boy summer or are you with democracy? And we got to make it plain to people that that's what we're talking about. So you can't be my friend. We can't hang out. We can't have any brewskis or whatever if you're not, voting in the right way in the fall, because what you're advocating for inadvertently are white supremacists. And we can't be coy or cordial about that. It's serious business, right? Because we're talking about democracy.
Here's the deal here, Candace. The reality is the Republican Party creates safe space for racists. You've got racist members of Congress who are there right now, who openly attend white supremacist conventions. Donald Trump had lunch with a racist, a violent racist in Nick Fuentes. That's the fact. And so that's who this Republican Party is. They are the party that embraces the folks who carry the tiki torches in Charlottesville, Virginia. This is who they are.
And you know what? Keep showing me who you are, because if I'm in a room, I want to know who the racist is. And that's what this type of a video does. It lets people know that we have not come that far when it comes to how white people feel about blacks in America. I mean, it's on display. We had a wake-up moment when Trump was elected. A lot of us knew about it. A lot of us sensed that there were more out there. But then when they came out with the Jews will not replace us and are just so open like we've seen in the video, at least we know. At least this allows the base to understand and be kind of invigorated to go out and vote, because this is what we are dealing with. They took a hot girl summer, nice little phrase that was just, very innocent, and turned it into a white boy summer with all of these racist overtones and undertones to make it clear that they feel threatened. Because for them, this is their America, and that's what we're seeing on the stage. It would be as if you or I walked out and our car was stolen from our from our driveway. We wonder what's going on. That's how they feel. They feel like America is being stolen right from under them, and this is the result of that. But again, it is something that will inspire the base, because we have to understand and contextualize what democracy means, not just for us, but for them too, because that's who we're going to be voting against and with at the polls.
Larry.
Yeah, so black folks have been looking for a racist-free summer since 1619. We've had Jim Crow, Southern strategy, among other things, for the last several decades. So we're looking for some freedom during the summertime too. As my colleague noted, this is a play on the black aesthetic, which America loves to do. We saw that with how they, reconfigured and weaponized critical race theory, among other topics. What it means to be woke. So this is another example. Once again, these individuals, like I said, these are clear, blatant white supremacists taking phrases, wording that's was centered within blackness, and then weaponizing it against us. And so, listen, Roland, these folks can't be any clearer. And so, this is why people who are watching this, I need you to get family members, et cetera, to make sure they get to the polls in November, or we are going to reap what we sow in January, next president of the United States, because this is serious business. We haven't seen this kind of blatant, white supremacy in the open in quite a long time. As my colleague highlighted, it has been normalized. I mean, we're just seeing this stuff run on TV, like and people writing about it in articles. It's like it's not a big deal. Like, this is kind of guys having fun. But the reality is, this is serious. And if you read any Project 2025, we're in very serious trouble if Donald Trump gets in office and he's elected in November.
All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. We're going to come back, some breaking news out of Texas. That pastor who announced that I had a moral failing years ago and it involved a 12-year-old girl? He's quit. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table, a man Cornel West calls the greatest Democratic theorist of his generation. Adolph Reed joins us to talk about his eventful life and his book, The South, Jim Crow and Its Afterlives.
Somewhere between an electoral sweep or an out-and-out coup or putsch, I think the danger is quite real.
Join us for the Black Table, only on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
This is Reggie Rock Byford. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, Uncut, Unplugged, and Undamn Believable. You hear me?
Folks, the other day, WFAA Channel 8 out of Dallas reported that Pastor Robert Morris, who leads the Gateway Church in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they around 100,000 some odd people every weekend convene there. They reported that he expressed a moral failing years ago that he said he told the church elders about, and that they dealt with him, and how he sat out, and it was all this other little stuff that they had announced. Well, guess what? He's been getting it. First of all, he described as a young woman. She wasn't a young woman. She was 12 years old. Well, since that story was broken, all hell is broken loose. About 48 hours later, Morris is out. This is the same Morris who you saw that video right there, sitting right next to Donald Trump. He was one of the folks who was a supporter of Trump and a spiritual advisor, if you will, to him. And so this is the statement from the Board of Elders of Gateway Church regarding the resignation of Robert Morris. Today, June 18th, the Board of Elders of Gateway Church accepted the resignation of Robert Morris, the senior pastor. In addition, the board has retained the law firm of Haynes & Boone LLP to conduct an independent, thorough, and professional review of the report of past abuse to ensure we have a complete understanding of the events from 1982 to 1987. Regretfully, prior to Friday, June 14th, the elders did not have all of the facts of the inappropriate relationship between Morris and the victim, including her age at the time and the length of the abuse. The elder's prior understanding was that Morris's extramarital relationship, which he had discussed many times throughout his ministry, was with a, quote, young lady, unquote, and not abuse of a 12-year-old child. Even though it occurred many years before Gateway was established, as leaders of the church, we regret that we did not have the information that we now have. We are heartbroken and appalled by what has come to light over the past few days, and we express our deep sympathy to the victim and her family. For the sake of the victim, we're thankful this situation has been exposed. We know many have been affected by this. We understand that you are hurting, and we are very sorry. It is our prayer that in time, healing for all those affected can occur. So what you have here, Candace, is a church playing Cover Your Ass. He stood out there and talked about what they did and how they sat him down and how he was away for 2 years. It was actually like a month. And they excused it. He was 21 years old. He did not have sexual intercourse, according to, he did not have sexual intercourse with this woman when she was 12. The woman now, she went public, told a story to WFAA, has just hired an attorney as well. But she talked about how this took place, him kissing and groping her over several years. And it was crazy to watch some of these people literally offer defenses of him. It was insane. In fact, this woman here is the founder of a church in Weatherford, Texas. And this is what Barbara Phillips Littlepage said. And if you go to that church, you need to be running like crazy. She said, I want people to not judge Robert Morris because of a mistake he made over 30 years ago. Some young girls at 12 years old are very beautiful and sexy. They don't understand how men are made, and young men don't understand their actions are used by the devil to ruin a future God has for them. Other godly men have been distracted by Satan. That's why older men need to mentor young men. Young men don't realize how Satan will try to destroy their futures with their families and ministries. Candace, Robert Morris was 21 years old. The woman today at that time was 12. She was a girl. She wasn't even a teenager. She was a 12-year-old girl.
And notice how they tried to frame it as an extramarital relationship.
Yeah.
This was a girl This was a girl. I mean, I can hardly get through this sentence or this segment. This is a girl who really had no idea even who she was. And here he is, and here the church is, and here you've read this statement from someone in the church that they're trying to make it seem like it was pretty much her fault.
He actually called it, Candace, inappropriate and a moral failure.
And by the way, some of the statements as they've been describing how it happened, they made it seem like it was one time. Well, one time is enough. And besides that, this was over years. This was over years. You know, you think about this pastor, you think about Tony Evans, you think about, you know, the fact that Tony Evans said, listen, I haven't committed a crime. Here, a crime was committed. This man is a pedophile at 12 years. He groomed this young woman, 12 years old to 16 years old. She hadn't even attended a junior prom yet. And she's, you know, sleeping with this pastor, or, you know, no sexual contact. We got the groping and kissing, but they didn't have intercourse. But that was a grooming process. Lord only knows why he stopped. Lord only knows, you know, what really happened inside of that, where it all ended. And he is going to have a lot of people questioning him, and it won't just be from the church. It's going to be from the authorities, Roland.
Well, and see what really happened, what really just, how this thing just took off, Larry, you started seeing churches tied to them. And this is a very prominent right-wing church. They are aligned with many social conservatives. And so you have a lot of churches that are underneath their umbrella where they act as overseer. In fact, this church in Fort Worth, again, right-wing church, Mercy Culture, they released their own statement. They say Morris never disclosed to them the age of the girl that he abused. And so you see their statement where they lay out these various thoughts. And so here's what was happening. The avalanche was coming. You were seeing church after church. You were about to see mass resignations. And so I don't know how in the hell he thought he could just get away with, oh, it was an inappropriate moral failure. Dude, you were 21 years old and you were feeling up on and you were kissing. You were sexually assaulting a 12-year-old girl over a period of years.
He's a predator, Roland. Let's call it for what it is. This is a part of a larger conversation that's connected to our previous conversation about the kind of behaviors based on ideology that folks seem to turn a blind eye to. Let's also make sure that we make a connection. We saw for years, found out the last several years, we saw that the Catholic Church, and there were, thousands of children worldwide that were sexually abused. And so this is a part of we have a larger conversation in our society about particularly protecting children, particularly from young girls, from individuals who are predators. The other point I want to make, Roland, is you show that side by side with the former president of the United States is that predators, as we know in the wild, travel in packs. And so we need to make sure, Americans need to make sure that you understand exactly what's happening here in the homes and various churches and these various other places at times with individuals who assert to be religious leaders and believe in the Bible. This is not behavior consistent with the Bible. This is illegal behavior by predators who once again are traveling in packs and often using ideology to mask their behavior.
You cannot convince me, Joy, that this was a one-time thing.
Correct.
Trust me, I think these folks are bracing for more women to now come forward.
That's right. Or current girls. I assure you it's not a one-time thing. It's never a one-time thing. And Larry is right. They travel in packs. So I'm willing to bet there were people that not only assisted, aided, and abetted this story, because I promise you, someone knew the age of the girl. Someone did. This is a time where people use the Google and they understand. There were whispers. There are always whispers. And then I bet there are those who were doing the same thing and they covered for each other. That is what happens every time. And so, I think it's a reminder that when people say they care about children and they care about life, it's not the words that count. It's what happens when it's someone that you respect, that you love, that's your leader. Do you call them out? Do you say no to sexual harassment when it's your brother, when it's your husband, when it's your father, when it's your friend, when it's your pastor? Do you say no to sexual abuse when it's someone in a position of authority that you care about, that you had faith in? That's when we know, does the person care about children? Do they care about the life of people who are young and vulnerable, which is what they tell us when they strip us of our reproductive freedoms, that's what they're caring for? They don't care for it. It's a lie. It's a lie. The same lie that we know has happened in the Catholic Church, frankly, in the Baptist Church, frankly, everywhere where you have powerful people who are allowed to abuse the less powerful. So we'll learn more about this. Their lawyers are in for a long slog.
Now, and so I'm going to play this video here, y'all, because, 2014 sermon, this tweet says, don't go to it yet, it says, in 2014 sermon, Robert Morris frames his, quote, sexual immorality, unquote, as occurring when he was a teenager and before he was ever saved. Mind you, the girl was 12. He was in his 20s, was married, and was also a minister. That's a whole lot going on. Listen to this.
I was very sexually immoral as a teenager. And it started early in my life, and it was very easy for me. I learned to lie and manipulate. Because I also had rejection, I didn't want to be rejected. So I looked for the girls that would be the most susceptible. And I learned how to spot this in girls. I looked for girls that did not have a good relationship with their father. I learned to spot that. I looked for girls that were insecure. And I don't know, now I look back on this, I can tell I did it. It wasn't like a plan that I had, but I could spot this. And I asked the Lord after I got saved, God, what was the root? Why? They said I was blessed. I know I wasn't blessed, I was cursed. Multiple affairs. And I don't understand this, God. And so what was the root? What was the open door in my life? I was very sexually immoral.
So, again, here's the deal. This is the interesting part here, Candace. You hit on it earlier. He tried to frame this as, I was a teenager, they were teenagers, I had affairs. No, dude, you were a grown-ass man messing with a 12-year-old. And what you just heard him say is literally the Predator playbook.
Yeah, he told us his plan. And you're right. That's what they do. They groom young women, and they also look for the signs, as he said, the weak relationship with the father, somebody who's insecure. And he was in a position of power so that these young women would look up to them. And he thought that by saying this, and I don't know when this was recorded, but he felt in his heart, that absolves me. I have confessed my sins, but the sins that he was confessing, they were made up of lies. So he confessed nothing that we knew about at that time. The real deal is what we know about today. But there's more, because that's what people in positions of power do. You don't just stop at one. He had a whole flock of young women and men, I'm just saying that because we don't know the story, at his disposal. And that's how they function. It's never just one. Not after all those years. He might have had maybe her, but there was somebody after her, or there was somebody at the same time.
That.
What's that?
I promise you that. Absolutely. There was someone after her. Mm-hmm.
That's right. We are going to hear so much more about this. This is only the beginning. He's moving money from bank accounts right now.
She said the abuse took place from December 1982 through March 1987. So Larry, because this is what many of his supporters have said. How do you deal with grace and forgiveness? How do you deal with that? And I totally understand that. Let me be perfectly clear. I understand a person does actions when they are saved. I'm sorry, before they were saved. I understand all of those different things. Here's why I think this is different. This is not a question of grace and mercy and someone made a mistake. He purposely lied and concealed the truth about what he did, the age of the young girl, and he used language that would make somebody think, oh, he cheated on his wife with another adult. That's what he made it sound like. She wasn't 18, she wasn't 17, she was 12. And so he knew what he was doing. And so that to me also I think is critically important because of the language that he used. So at no point did he say, folks, I was 21 years old and I was sexually molesting a 12-year-old. Mm-hmm. Never said that, Larry.
Never.
No, he never said that. And listen, there's a lot to unpack here. And so I think one of the things that is, you're right, Roland, is the message he delivered was a lie. And he's using it essentially, look, we know it's church, but he's using it as marketing to kind of talk about who he was before he said he was saved and who he was, he said since then, and reflect on his sins. And we know pastors and many churches and different religions do this all the time. But this is really part of what I said about her earlier calling a predator. And then you played this video to prove my point. The other really important point about this issue is, and I hope this happens, is people who are victims of this kind of a sexual assault are often, not obviously young lady he victimized, but those who have family, he has family members, I would strongly suggest that those individuals have conversations with individuals who are children and adults now. Because often when this happens, it is someone who's close to you. And so once again, he's a predator. He hasn't just been preying on this young lady, but there are possibly other individuals closer to his circle who also have been victimized at some point. And so we need to hold him responsible. I don't know what the statute of limitation is, et cetera. But once again, predators move in packs. And as my colleagues noted, there were absolutely people who knew about this. They always know. You always hear these rumors, not necessarily these kind of rumors, but these kind of rumors they don't stay within a circle of just like 2 or 3 people. There are a number of people who see something that may be inappropriate happen, and they often turn a blind eye. And that's why, as a society, we have to have a larger conversation about how we protect children, particularly young girls, from predators like this man.
Can I just add, forgiveness is important.
Joy, go ahead.
But you actually have to ask for forgiveness too. And when you're lying and trying to minimize what you did, you're not asking for forgiveness. And you also have to seek forgiveness from the person that you harmed. From the person that you harmed. So, the question is, did he say anything to the young woman and her family? Did he try to make amends with her? I guarantee the answer is no. No. These are the things that are the hallmarks of people who are truly remorseful. Are they seeking to get the counseling that they need? Not being saved. I'm talking about professional help, because anyone who's ever done defense work, criminal justice work knows that sexual predators, sexual mishaps or inappropriate behavior are some of the hardest to address, because they are so deep-seated. Mm-hmm. So this is not like you robbed from a 5 and dime or something like that. That's not what this is. This is someone who at 21, and in the 80s when 21 meant something, 21 feels younger now than it did 20, 25, 30 years ago. So this guy's a predator. Hell no, 21. I don't give a damn what decade it is. Absolutely.
21 is 21 and 12 is 12. The woman's name is Cindy Clemshire. She told her story to WFAA TV out of Dallas. Here is some of that conversation.
Pastor of one of DFW's largest churches is responding to allegations that he molested a 12-year-old in the 1980s. Robert Morris, who preaches at Gateway Church in Southlake, admits he engaged in inappropriate sexual behavior, but the pastor says he was transparent, sought forgiveness and counseling before returning to the pulpit. Tonight, Matt Houston spoke to the accuser for the very first time.
Cindy Clemashire read from Genesis Sunday.
As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today.
That's the 54-year-old's prayer, that her story would bring about some good. She accuses Gateway Church pastor Robert Morris of molesting her from 1982 to 1987. The first time, she says, she was 12. Morris, a family friend, was in his early 20s, already married, already preaching.
The story is gut-wrenching when I read it on paper, and I've been sharing for years. So it just happens to be God's time, I think, for it to come to light.
In a statement, Morris admits to inappropriate sexual behavior with a young lady, though he did not reference her age. It was kissing and petting, he said, and not intercourse, but it was wrong. In 1987, Clemashire says she told a family friend who told her to tell her parents.
He didn't come forward and confess. He was turned in. And when someone's turned in, what are they sorry for? Are they sorry because they got caught, or are they truly repentant of what they did?
That's why she takes issue with Gateway Church elders who say Morris followed proper biblical steps and a lengthy restoration process. She says her family forgave Morris, but never gave him their blessing to preach again. Morris claims they did.
I think that leaders can get caught up in feeling like it's our responsibility to protect God, and it's not. Their responsibility is to protect the people.
Gateway Church elders say since the resolution of this 35-year-old matter, there have been no other moral failures. Pastor Robert has walked in purity and has placed accountability measures and people in his life. The matter's been properly disclosed to church leadership.
That's Old Testament verse. Let me show you a New Testament verse.
Morris did not preach Saturday. He'd already announced plans to turn over church leadership to his son next spring, though he said he would continue preaching some. In Tarrant County, I'm Matt Houston.
Well, bottom line here, she gave an interview with the NBC News where she said that one time he invited her to his room where he instructed her to lie on her back. He then touched her breasts and felt under her panties. And this happened several times over a 4.5-year period. And so he lied. And so that was when they dropped the story on Sunday. And now you see that the church elder statement a couple of days later, a lot different. Candace, from a legal standpoint, she's hired an attorney. What do you see here? Because this took place, 30-some years ago.
She might feel defamed in some way, I will say that, because he made it seem like it was an extramarital affair with a young woman, when really he was lying by omission, when we know that he was really a pedophile, that he's a predator. So I think that that's one thing when we're talking about defaming someone, and whatever he's saying about her behind closed doors, none of that has come into fruition. I'm not sure about the laws in terms of the statutes of limitation or really what she has signed. I don't know if she's received any money. It wasn't mentioned in there, but maybe there was an NDA. I think there's a lot of information that we just happen not to know about, but definitely some legal course of action. And I would say this, that if I were she, I would say, you know what? I don't want the father preaching, nor do I want it to be passed down to the son. It's still on the family. We need to take that whole thing away. We need to find somebody else outside of his family to run this church. Otherwise, it's just like him being at the helm if his son is going to take over that church.
Great point, great point. All right, folks, I got to go to break. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. Lots to talk about, including Vice President Kamala Harris with Quavo today in Atlanta for a gun violence summit. You're watching the Black Star Network. Back in a moment.
Hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Bishop William J. Barber II, co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, and president of Repairs of the Breach. And I'm calling on you to get everybody you know to join us on Saturday, June 29th at 10 o'clock a.m. in Washington, D.C. on Pennsylvania and 3rd for the mass Poor People's Low-Wage Workers Assembly and Moral March on Washington and to the polls, and the post effort to reach 15 million poor and low-wage infrequent voters who, if they vote, can change the outcome of our politics in this country.
Our goal is to center the desires and the political policy agenda of poor and low-wage persons, along with moral religious leaders and advocates. Too often, poor and low-wage people are not talked about, even though in this country today there are 135 million poor and low-wage persons. There's not a state in this country now where poor and low-wage persons do not make up at least 30% of the electorate.
It is time that the issues of poor and low-wage people be at the center of our politics. Living wages, health care, things that matter in the everyday lives. We will no longer allow poverty to be the fourth leading cause of death in this country. We must let our voices be heard. Join us. Go to our website, www.poorpeoplescampaign.org. RSVP. Get others to come. Get a bus, get a van, get on the train. Come and let our voices be heard and our votes be felt. Lift from the bottom so that everybody rises.
Hello, I'm Paula J. Parker. Truly proud on the Proud Family, louder and prouder on Disney+. And you're watching Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
Vice President Kamala Harris joined Migos rapper Quavo today for the inaugural Rocket Foundation Summit at the Carter Center in Atlanta. Quavo started the foundation after his nephew Takeoff's tragic fatal shooting in 2022. The foundation is committed to ending gun violence in America. The one-day summit, which was held on the late rapper's birthday, included parallel discussions about gun violence prevention and youth programs. Harris explained why addressing gun violence is so critically important in America.
Madam Vice President, you travel the country connecting with communities and young leaders. Just this past fall, during the Fight for Our Freedoms College Tour, you engaged over 15,000 students on college campuses across the country on the most urgent issues of this moment, in particular, the fight for our most fundamental freedoms. One freedom you are focused on is the freedom to be safe from gun violence. And so it's no surprise that you oversee the first ever White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Now, what can we do from your perspective to end this senseless violence, and how is the administration leading on this issue?
Thank you, Greg. Let me just start by talking about Quavo. So Quavo and his mother and his aunt, Takeoff's mother, a sister, came to my office in the West Wing of the White House to talk about this issue. And it was a difficult conversation that day. Because the issue is such a difficult one, and I know there are a lot of families here and survivors, and the pain that is associated with gun violence in America is almost unspeakable. And it is everywhere. And what Quavo has been doing with the Rocket Foundation to translate that pain and that grief into something that is about creating strength and empowerment in the community, including among our young people, is really extraordinary. And as I said to you that day, Quavo, in my office, that you have chosen to use your celebrity, the gift that you have as an artist, to talk about and actually work on with action this issue is really extraordinary. You are an incredible leader and a national leader on this, and I thank you for that as the head of the first White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention and as Vice President of the United States.
Thank you, thank you.
Really, really. And so this issue is, well, let me just start with this. It doesn't have to be this way. And we have to hold on to and remember that. It does not have to be this way. We cannot ever normalize this. We cannot ever get used to it. And we certainly cannot accept it. We need to understand that everyday gun violence is as serious as mass shootings, that any life lost, any life that has been impacted by gun violence is one life too many. We have to think about this in the many ways that the injury occurs, which includes, of course, the tragedy of life that is lost, but also the trauma that is an additional form of injury that can exist for a lifetime if we don't put resources into calling it what it is and putting the resources into diagnosis and treatment. Let's think about it in terms of the tragedy that gun violence in America is the #1 killer of the children of America. Not car accidents, not cancer, gun violence. 1 in 5 Americans has a family member that was killed by gun violence. Gun violence, black victims of gun violence, 10 times more likely to be a victim of gun violence. So it's a real issue that requires everybody's priority in terms of addressing it. And there are many ways to do it that include also what we need to do around election time, which is about recognizing that too many people who I will call cowards have been pushing this false choice to suggest you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. That's a false choice. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment. I also believe there is no reason why we have assault weapons on the streets of America. They are weapons of war. We need an assault weapons ban. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, and we need universal background checks. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, and we need red flag laws. And we need the people in the United States Congress to have the courage to stand up to the gun lobbyists and take action around what is just reasonable. Universal background checks. You just might want to know before someone can buy a lethal weapon if they've been found to be a danger to themselves or others. You just might want to know. That's reasonable. Assault weapons. Assault weapons are designed to kill a lot of people quickly. There's no place for them in the neighborhoods and the streets where people live and go to school and worship. We've seen what they do. So there are solutions, and that's part of the work that I'm doing with the Gun Violence Prevention Office at the White House, is to work on those solutions, including what we have recently done through that office, which is to put $1 billion into hiring mental health counselors in our public schools to help address the mental health aspect of this. Yes.
Amazing. Madam Vice President, you spoke of courage, and there's nothing more courageous than losing someone and stepping up and taking action. And Quavo, you did one of the bravest things with your family by coming to Washington and advocating for change. And so I'm just curious if you could share a little bit about why is this issue so important to you, and why is it so important for you to take action after suffering such loss?
I'm a victim. I got a second chance. I feel like I wouldn't be here if everybody, you know what I'm saying, it would have. I just look at myself as like, when I saw him laying there, I felt like I saw me laying there. So I feel like when I'm doing something like the Rocket Foundation, I just want to uplift his legacy and make sure to keep his name alive.
Joab continued to say that this is exactly what the Biden-Harris campaign should be doing more of with the vice president, not just in, I believe there should be places where they're taking questions from people, because again, you have to be engaging with people. Unfortunately, it doesn't get the coverage that is necessary, but I fundamentally believe they've got to be doing more of this in utilizing the vice president in a much more aggressive way on the campaign trail.
I think that's right. And, you know, it's not so much about press at this point. It's about pinpricking exactly where you know you're going to need voters and going to those communities. Just like we know the campaign just launched a major ad buy in swing states. So most of us who don't live in those swing states, you know, are never going to see those ads. Well, the same thing is true for your town hall strategy. You might have to say, you know what, I'm going to those places where we know we need to bring voters, you know, to us. We know people need to hear from us. I think there, you know, gun violence is one conversation. I think we may need to talk in some communities about what's happening in Israel and Gaza. There are, you know, places, just like we're doing with everything else. Sometimes people need to be able to touch and feel you. It needs to be long format where you can talk to them and they can interact with you and maybe ask you tough questions, allow you to demystify who you are. We know who Kamala Harris is. We know she is a champion and a fighter for Black men, Black women, but also all Americans. People need to hear that and they need to see her out there in the community, use Air Force 2, whatever, be out there. We need to touch and we need to feel you. We need to hear from you.
Larry.
The vice president is a tremendous asset. You know, many of my colleagues have worked on campaigns before. And listen, if I'm working, at the White House, I would have been deploying her months ago. And I know she's been actively engaged. I want to be clear, traveling internationally, representing, President Biden and going into communities. But I would have been doing this kind of thing months ago. Listen, she checks so many boxes off that it boggles my mind that she isn't consistently doing this, on a weekly basis. First of all, she has a very easy way of connecting with community. And not only in terms of her importance of being a Black woman, we have to acknowledge that Black women are the backbone of the Democratic Party, but also her ability to be able to talk to Black men. And as a Howard alum, as a member of Divine Nine, she checks so many boxes off. But once again, she's ideally like a dream VP for reaching out for demographics that too often are marginalized. And so the White House, in my opinion, has to, and I know she spoke to 100 Black men recently, they have to continue to do events like this over the next couple of months because she really has a great job of empathizing with individuals. You see in this interview in terms of who've been touched by gun violence, but also issue in terms of Black women in terms of infant mortality rate or pregnancy-related mortality rates. So there's so many issues she could discuss that the White House, once again, has to deploy her as much as possible, getting to talk to Black and Latinx communities and getting individuals out the vote, but also highlighting the Biden-Harris administration, the infrastructure bill, the CHIPS Act, and capping insulin, so many other issues that impact so many Black and brown communities.
Candace.
This is a day where earlier when I was looking online, I saw dozens of headlines about whether Hillary Clinton should be the vice presidential candidate. And will that happen? I mean, we know it's not going to happen, but that's because people aren't doing the work that you're doing to make sure that Kamala gets a little shine. What she's doing, like the panelists said, is something that the president could not do. Remember, people turned their backs on him at Morehouse. They were worried about what he was said. He didn't have the best reception and level of applause. She does know how to speak to people. She has been really putting it down. Her international travel, her HBCU travel, her travel when it comes to young Black men, and this is what they need to reach out to. And she's doing quite a good job. It's just that we don't hear about it. So it's good to be talking about it and to really kind of highlight what she's doing. Not only is she talking kind of the language, but she's speaking in a way that we would talk with when you have somebody at your home on the couch. Her tone, her disposition was just very, matter of fact, and like you're speaking to a sister or an aunt or something. And I think that really works in these types of contexts that we're seeing, and we need to see a lot more in order for there to really be some type of momentum where people are listening. Great job, though, and very intentional of getting together with someone who is a rapper. And because people listen to rappers, she should get with a comedian, too. Why? We listen to our Black male comedians like they are leaders of the free world also. So a lot more work to be done, but more than a great start. She's been on this path for years, and it's good to talk about her.
You mentioned this discussion in Hillary Clinton. So here's the whole deal, y'all. Go to my iPad, Henry. So Kathleen Parker of the Washington Post has written again a piece of trash. Kathleen Parker, she previously wrote a column asserting this same nonsensical BS about the problem with the Democrats and how Hillary Clinton should come to and rescue and how they should be replacing Vice President Kamala Harris because by Inauguration Day, Joe Biden is going to be 82 years old. And so she's writing about all this stuff, blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. And then she talked about, Kamala Harris, whose low popularity has not been improved by her lackluster performance as vice president. First of all, lackluster, you can't even define what that even is. And then she goes, more independents and disenchanted Republicans might swing for Biden if it weren't for the prospect of a President Harris, not because of her sex, race, or any other demographic category, but because of her competency or lack thereof. First of all, Kathleen Parker, you're full of shit. Let's be real clear. America is a sexist country. America is a country that I personally think will elect another Black president before we elect a woman president. That's just a fact. This country has a problem with sexism. Other major countries, okay? Canada, Israel, India, Mexico, Pakistan. I mean, we can go on and on. Philippines. I mean, have had female leaders. Not in this country, because even women in this country have a problem seeing a woman as president. And the reality is this whole notion that, competence. Let's be clear, and I've said this numerous times. I have talked to numerous people. Can anybody tell me what the hell did Mike Pence do for 4 years? Can anybody please tell me what Vice President Biden did for 4 years? Can anybody tell me what Dick Cheney did? We know what he did. Led us into a damn war, okay, and try to destroy the country. Let's see here. What did Mondale do? What did Dan Quayle do? What did George H.W. Bush do as Reagan's vice president? We keep going. What exactly did Mondale do for Carter? What? Well, we know what Spiro Agnew did for Nixon. He had to resign because he got indicted. So we know what that happened. So let's see here. What did Hubert Humphrey do for LBJ? In fact, this is what's so crazy. If you think back to the vice presidents in the last, ever, the most accomplished vice president was President Lyndon Baines Johnson. And Kennedy didn't want his ass anywhere around. Think about that, y'all. Why am I saying that? It's because these expectations of Vice President Kamala Harris is flat out dumb. We actually act like Oh my God. I mean, she's right there. Yes. Is she advising the president? Is he seeking out her advice and counsel? Yeah. But y'all, can we please stop tripping? Can we please stop this whole notion? Oh, we will feel differently if Kathleen Parker, Biden don't need to be targeting disaffected Republicans right now. He gonna be shoring up his base. And Kathleen Parker, let me tell you something right now. If you actually think black people are going to be cool with dropping Vice President Harris to bring in Hillary Clinton, you are on meth. And in fact, let me remind you, Kathleen Parker, she had a shot at beating Trump. They ran an inept campaign. Let's not forget all the things they said about Hillary Clinton. This is a dumb discussion. And what it shows is the hatred that Kathleen Parker has for Vice President Kamala Harris. Look at this here. The question now is, how risky would it be for Democrats to replace her? Some worry that a change would jeopardize black votes. It was never clear, however, that Harris was a draw for black American voters, even if some black women celebrated her rise. When she dropped out of the presidential race in 2019, she was polling below Pete Buttigieg in South Carolina. Moreover, does anyone really think any Democrats are going to suddenly turn to Trump because Biden changed his running mates to improve his chances of re-election? Herein lies one of the problems with identity politics. See, I love this here. See, y'all, block voting by skin color is among our most racist assumptions. Democrats, regardless of pigmentation or cultural heritage, want to win elections, presumably to advance a worldview consistent with their values. So here we go. Here's a white woman in Kathleen Parker who now wants to take a shot at identity politics. Identity politics, that's how Obama picked Biden. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you think I forgot? Remember when the young black guy was running for president and a lot of people in media and in political circles, he needs to get him an experienced white man with foreign policy bona fides. Oh, I remember that. In fact, I remember folks saying Obama needs to get a white man like Joe because Joe's from Scranton, Pennsylvania. And they can send Joe out and talk to the white folks who are sort of iffy about the black guy named Barack Hussein Obama. And so they can send Joe to Illinois and Indiana, and they can send him to Ohio and Pennsylvania. Scranton Joe. I'm sorry, am I the only one remember that? So I hope y'all notice that whenever they love to mention identity politics, they always seem to use it only when it's African American, but they never use it when it's white folks. So Kathleen Parker, we're gonna need you to shut the hell up. You've written another trash column like the one you ran months ago, and trust me, ain't nobody listening to you. Your opinion regarding Vice President Kamala Harris is about as important as your opinion was on that CNN show you did with Elliot Spitzer, which was a dumpster fire from the moment it was announced. So please, Kathleen Parker, shut the hell up. I'll be right back.
We are the culture. We blaze trails. We define our future. We are the heart and soul of America. This Juneteenth, we celebrate freedom. Freedom to live, breathe, play, choose, marry, and vote. We are one America. And with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we're ready to face the future together. We can't stop now.
I'm Joe Biden,
and I approve this message.
Now streaming on the Black Star Network.
If we look at all of the best mans, the movies, and then, of course, series on Peacock, why do you think it resonated so well?
Well, I think it's a reflection of us. You know, I think it's a reflection of authentic black people, the way they see themselves. And in some instances, aspirationally so.
Mitchell, a news anchor at Fox 5 DC.
Hey, what's up? It's Tammy Roman, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
New York Congressman Jamal Bowman squared off with his political opponent, Westchester County Executive George Latimer, in a debate. It got a little heated between the 16th District of New York candidates when Bowman said a right-wing lobby funded by Trump Republicans is supporting Latimer's campaign against him with millions of dollars.
Is the role that
the wealthy, and particularly for my opponent's campaign, billionaire Republicans are buying our democracy. The reason why our democracy doesn't work for working class people and the majority of the American people is because of big money in politics. He is running a big money campaign. They're spending more money in this race to get me out than they have ever spent in their history, meaning AIPAC. More money than they have ever spent in their history.
That sounds like a dog whistle to me.
It's a one-issue special interest. Their issue, according to Politico, is Israel.
Correct.
Yeah, so
let me, I think I still had time on the clock.
Yeah.
Good.
So their one issue is Israel, not Mount Vernon, not the Bronx, not New Rochelle, not Portchester, not White Plains, not Tuckahoe, Israel. And they recruited him to run against me. And they're spending more money in this race than they have ever spent in their history. Why? Because I'm fighting against the genocide in Gaza and because I'm speaking up for black and brown people here. We should not be sending billions of dollars to another country to commit genocide while we are struggling to live day to day right here in this district.
Thank you.
We've had enough of the rhetoric of Jamal Bowman. This district has had enough of it. There's parts of this district that he has flat out ignored. And those are the people that are donating to my campaign because they don't feel they have a congressman who represents them. He doesn't talk about them. He doesn't talk about their needs. He doesn't understand their needs. He doesn't care about understanding their needs. And when he goes to California and gets Silicon Valley money, then has the gall to criticize people who live in the district that give me the money, that's the height of hypocrisy. He has turned into a Washington, D.C. politician in simply 2 quick terms. Didn't take long for him to flip.
Also in that debate, George Latimer lied, y'all. The Justice Democrats, who are, of course, supporting Jamal Bowman, posted this on their Twitter account. Give me 1 second. I'm going to sit here and switch phones here. I saw this video here, and I was kind of like, okay, pretty interesting. All right, here we go.
Have you ever voted for a Republican? No. Mr. Latimer? No.
I know you're in Party A. My dad's in Party B. I said, not a problem, Jerry. I'm voting for your father, our friend, the great Herman Geist.
Wow, so that's interesting there. So Latimer sat there, lied in this debate, Joy, saying he's never voted for Republican. Dude, 3 weeks earlier you said you did. And Bowman is right. AIPAC is spending millions of dollars, and Republican donors are flooding AIPAC's coffers with money to take out progressive black Democrats. They targeted Summer Lee. She beat them back. They're targeting Cori Bush. They're targeting Jamal Bowman. They've been targeting Ayanna Pressley. AIPAC is going after black members of Congress.
That's right. And this is where the Democratic has to be really, really careful, including party people that we might love, right? Might have even talked about them in an earlier segment. They have to be really, really careful that they are not doing the bidding for people who are racist, people who are targeting people because they not just don't agree with them, but they want to take out just a whole line of thought. And the fact that they're black faces, they think they can get away with it and no one will say anything about it. They feel like they bought off enough politicians that no one will say anything about it. And we have to be willing to say something about it because our people have eyes. They see what's happening. And they're waiting for the Democratic Party to support them when it counts. Now, there is nothing wrong with supporting different candidates or, saying, hey, I don't support you, I want to give my money elsewhere. But when you seek to attack in such a vicious way with lies and innuendo and other types of behavior that really should only be reserved for the alternative party, such that if Bowman wins, he's going to have people in the Democratic Party who still don't want to support him. That's a problem. That's not what you do when you want to get the majority in the House and the majority in the Senate. We have got to call halt to that kind of campaigning. And anyone, any organization engaged in that kind of campaigning, we've got to say there is no place for that. Because if black people were doing that, if Palestinian people were doing that, that would not be okay. And people would be saying they're short-sighted and they don't have the end goal in mind.
You have AIPAC specifically targeting, they want to take out black members of Congress, Candace.
And this is a real lesson on why we all need to be very politically good consumers, right? Because when you see these debates, we're going to see, right, a debate that's coming up with Trump and Biden, what's that, next week? But they're all going to be saying things that we need to be better consumers, politically speaking, better voters. And this is one of those things that we need to learn more about in terms of AIPAC, the money, what they're doing in order to get black candidates out. Because when they get up there on the dais, they can say anything that they want. So it's going to be incumbent upon us as voters to be more informed and to really rise to the occasion, to be the informed voter that we need to be when they go to the polls, because we see the lies that are right there. But if you're unaware of them, if you're not watching your show, if you're not doing research on your own, you could get caught up and not really understand what is the undercurrent there that people are going through when they are running for office. But we see that the truth is speaking right now with the video that we just saw.
Larry?
So it's important in terms of the context of the conversation. You talk about black political power. And so we know, Roland, that the CBC currently has its highest, number of members in its history. And so when you chip away at those numbers, you dilute black political power. That members of the CBC, I'm a former CBC staffer and fellow, staff worked for years to build the caucus to where it is today. The other thing is when you're running someone else in the same party against someone in a primary, that speaks. Now, look, that happens, but when it's in a safe seat, there's some much deeper conversations my colleagues alluded to that we need to have when it comes as it relates to the Democratic Party. But like I said, let's be clear about what happens if he loses this seat. There's one less member of the CBC, and once again, that may be one less person that serves on a committee that means a lot to black empowerment and addressing issues that have plagued the black community because of systemic racism for decades.
Folks, the early voting in this campaign runs through Saturday, June 23rd. Election Day is next Tuesday, June 25th. So definitely make your vote known. All right, going to a break. We'll be right back.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, we meet Ricky Fairley. She was given a death sentence by her doctor 11 years ago. But for Ricky, giving up was not an option. She declared war on her disease. turned her entire life upside down and won the battle.
I know that God left me here to do this work. And when you talk about faith, faith is what got me through. I mean, I had to relinquish my faith and give my life to God and say, okay, God, what have you got for me? And He gave me my purpose. And that's why I'm here.
Her amazing story of strength, balance, and survival here on A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie on Black Star Network.
We are the culture. We blaze trails. We define our future. We are the heart and soul of America. This Juneteenth, we celebrate freedom. Freedom to live, breathe, play, choose, marry, and vote. We are one America. And with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we're ready to face the future. Together, we can't stop now.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Hey, yo, what's up? This is Mr. Dalvin right here. What's up? This is KC. Sitting here representing the Jodeci. That's Jodeci. Right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folk, Caleb Belcher has been missing from his Martinsville, Virginia home since May 31st. The 16-year-old is 5 feet 7 inches tall, weighs 165 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about Caleb Belcher should call the Martinsville, Virginia Police Department at 276-403-5300, 276-403-5300. A federal jury convicts a former Maryland police officer of violating the civil rights of a driver when he used excessive force during a traffic stop. In August 2019, Philip Dupree pulled over a speeding driver who had just crossed the Prince George's County line into the district. Dupree handcuffed the driver, and according to federal prosecutors, the driver cursed at Dupree. You know, Dupree got a little pissed off, sprayed pepper spray into the driver's face from close range. In his report, Dupree wrote he used the spray because the driver bit him. But guess what? Prosecutors say the biting never took place. So he lied. Dupree was found guilty of one count of deprivation of rights under color of law for using excessive force. He faces up to 10 years in prison. And I say, good, Candace. I'm sick of these damn cops lying on these reports and abusing people. Good.
There's nothing like a good precedent. I mean, look at what we saw in Tennessee with those cops, the 6 cops that went down for beating and torturing those 2 black men. And we see this, and we see other handfuls of examples happening. And I think that this is a real eye-opener for police officers to really think about what is it that we are doing and what is it that we think we're actually going to get away with? Because the more headlines we see, the more they need to have their eyes open to know that they may not just get off. The other thing is that we need to think about the training. Now, we talk about this all the time, but what is happening with the training? Even if somebody bites you, what is the proper response to the biting? Is it that somebody is sprayed in the face with pepper spray? Or is it that you just walk away if the person is cuffed? Is it that you put them in the back of the car and shut the door? It seems to me that there are so many other options than the extreme options that they have been taking in order to justify this, in the case he did not die, but in order to justify deaths. So like you said, this is good. Good precedent is always good. And people should be on notice that this type of precedent is happening more so than we saw 10 years ago, for sure, Roland.
Joy?
You know, I agree with everything that's been said, but I feel a little depressed tonight because we've had training. There's been investment in training, and we have had many instances where the camera doesn't match the report, and yet it still happens. And so I think we have to move into this country to a moment of taking away protections for cops who are engaged in illegal and inappropriate behavior, so that they'll have pause, that their livelihoods will be on the line. There should be no qualified immunity. We've got to change the equation so that they will police themselves, so that other cops who observe it, who don't want to be sued as well, will also police their fellow officers. We've got to change the incentives here, because more training and more accountability and more, more rules are important. They are, and I want to fight for that. But we've got to make them individually say, if I do this, this might cost my family their livelihood, their security, their generational wealth, my children's ability to go to college. They've got to make mistakes so that cops stop making these quote unquote mistakes.
And here's my whole deal, Larry. I don't care if the cop is black or white. You got to go. And so Dupree, because he chose to be so arrogant, because he chose to sit here and act accordingly, well, now he is literally facing prison time. All he had to do was pull the person over. No, he got mad because he got cussed out by the driver. The driver in this case had never had any charges against them, had no violations before. And so, listen, people are going to respond when they get pulled over. Those things are going to happen. And these cops can't stand it when somebody responds a certain way. And so they don't like it when people respond to them that way. And so guess what? Now, because this fool decided to do this, he's now playing around with the law. And yeah, he's a brother. I'm looking for the photo right now. So, sorry, bro. Take your punk ass to federal prison.
Well, this is another example. Shout out to the Office of Civil Rights at DOJ. They've been consistent in terms of dealing when it comes to law enforcement and CEOs, in terms of the holding responsible when they dehumanize individuals. The other point I want to make, Roland, is, black folks are like 2 to 3 times more likely to end up dead when they come into contact with law enforcement. So in this situation, obviously the gentleman was speeding. I would assume he would get a ticket, considering he doesn't have a record. The other point, I think that's really important here is that, as my colleague noted, training, it's not having an impact. Body camera, certainly is holding police officers accountable when they commit some horrific crimes. But we're not making any progress on these issues. Black folks still, when we see law enforcement in our rearview mirror, even if we're not doing anything, we all feel that same sense of dread, wondering where our wallet is, et cetera. And once again, give the Office of Civil Rights credit for being consistent, because this didn't happen in the prior administration. And I think lastly, once again, the George Floyd Policing Act, it didn't become law because obviously a known certain person in the U.S. Senate, who'll go nameless, actually, Tim Scott, didn't as a black man, certainly didn't do what was necessary to make sure that legislation passed, because maybe we would have been able to address some of these issues in terms of police misconduct. But here we are once again asking for some kind of legislation to address these issues.
This Philip right here. All right, Philip, enjoy your time in federal prison. Speaking of federal prison, a flamboyant New York pastor who made headlines in 2022 when he was robbed during a live stream church service in Brooklyn, his dumb ass is going to prison for the next 9 years. Lamar Whitehead was found guilty of numerous fraud and attempted extortion charges, along with lying to the FBI. Prosecutors described the 45-year-old church leader as a grifter, conning money from his followers. During the 2-week trial, prosecutors described how Whitehead extracted $90,000 from a single mom in her 50s who attended his church. He allegedly promised that the money would serve as both an investment and to provide her with a home. Instead, prosecutors say Whitehead spent the money on himself. Now, he was all about attention and all about his little flashy clothes and all that sort of stuff. And he would, doing interviews, talk about how he liked the finer things in life and how he could afford those things and all of that. Now, Candace, Polly Lamar, 9 years in prison. All that running his damn mouth. Guess what? That didn't get you a damn thing.
Now, one thing, and we knew something was up. We saw that video when he got robbed of $1 million. A lot of that just didn't make sense and sit well with a lot of people. A lot of eyes were already on him, but more eyes were on him when that happened. That's first and foremost. Secondly, he was supposed to get sentenced in July, but because he ran his mouth on social media, making comments about the prosecutor, the judge says, we're going to move that right up because you shouldn't be talking like that. So we're going to sentence you now. And as we speak right now, he's in jail almost a month earlier because he ran his mouth. But this is a lesson for a lot of people. And we know that not all pastors are like this. By and large, they are not. But you do have to be careful, especially, this is a good lesson. If you have a seasoned saint, a senior citizen in your home, you know that when they go into maybe a facility, a healthcare facility, a long-term facility, they unload a lot of their cash. They cannot have it in their bank accounts. And I've had people who I know who their parents have been taken advantage of by pastors because there is trust. We in the Black community, we uphold them, and they come and they see that those seniors need to unload the money, and those phone calls happen more often, pastors checking in. You have got to be careful with anyone, but you do, especially if you have someone who has money that they are trying to unload. And when I saw this, that's the lesson that and the reminder that came to me. Fraud, extortion, lying. This is a man who thought that he could get away with it. Why? I don't know. We see this happening all the time. In fact, this is the second or third pastor story we've talked about tonight about pastors who are getting caught out there because they have no moral lowest common denominator that we all understand. So I am not surprised. Again, during COVID, when I saw him get robbed, I said, TikTok, his time is almost up.
See what had happened was so if you go back to my iPad, Henry. So what happened here? So he did a podcast with Pastor Jamal Bryant, telling his side, and he was talking about the FBI conspiracy and all that sort of stuff. All that running his mouth on these podcasts. Man, let's go ahead and listen to this lying fool.
It makes sense to me in order for me to say okay, right? Yeah. And y'all not making sense. I know it's hot. I know the heat is hot, but at the end of the day, too much is given, much is required. Yeah. And I tell them this: the God I serve used me as a vessel. That's right. And the vessel that He's using is for revelation. So if I back out of what I'm supposed to face head on, how can God use me to give me to give me revelation, right? And through this experience, I'm able to help so many people. But if I wasn't attacked the way I was, I wouldn't be able to help the people that I'm helping now, right? Yeah. So many people say, Bishop, how do you have a smile on your face? Jamal, I really trust Jesus. Wow. Right? I know I don't look like it because I look like a rapper. People say you're around a lot of rappers and think, oh, you a fraud. You can say whatever you want to say. Yeah. But I really trust Jesus. Like I have a relationship with my God, right? Yeah. And when you have a relationship with God, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but when you have a relationship with God, right, nobody else's opinion matters, right? So I know who God made me, and I'm going to continue to push. So, you expect me to come out in a black suit, I'm gonna come out in a Fendi suit. So that's just what it is. And I'm never gonna let you control what God has ordained. Yeah. And that's my motto. So
I say this here, God revealed 9 years, Larry.
Yeah, so last time I checked, Roland, there's no verse in the Bible talk about being a hustler. And so, he took the lots of money, power, respect. He took that literally. And so he's a crook. And now he's going to jail. And once again, Roland, sometimes you should keep your mouth closed when you're in these kind of situations. And once again, he won't be wearing any bling. He'd be wearing a jumpsuit. And the other thing is we have to keep in mind those who were victimized. Another example of the individuals who were victimized by this, someone who says they're a religious person, but certainly, like I say, he's not following the tenets of the Bible.
And Joy, last I checked, I don't think they make Fendi prison jumpsuits.
Hello.
Sorry.
This guy, I think I was on when we were talking about him before. And we knew then something was wrong. And I think at the time, We said, but just you wait. We'll learn more later. And we're learning more later. But I'm going to go ahead and be controversial here because I just don't care. Why is Jamal Bryant giving him an airing?
Oh, no. We appreciate, no, first of all, Jamal has a podcast. I appreciate that because that's what got him to go to prison early.
Well, that's true.
No. I mean, I ain't got no problem. First of all, listen, people reach out to me, want to come on the show. I've done interviews with people over the years. I've done interviews with people, they ass is guilty as hell. And I'm like, I don't know why you talking, but I'll go ahead and talk to you. So he talked for 1 hour and 10 minutes and just ran his mouth, and the feds was sitting there. Go ahead and play some of this.
No, Rashid Anderson was her son. Okay. But Brandon Belmonte was a federal informant that played as if he's a victim because they wanted to take down the mayor, Eric Adams. So we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
And then the fourth charge was lying to an FBI agent. Okay, we're going to talk about that. And the fifth charge was wire fraud for an allegedly trying to take $250,000. So let's go to the first count, Pauline Anderson. Now, before I can get to the first count, I got to tell you guys the entire picture.
So I love the fact that he talked to Jamal.
Yeah.
Yes, but my point is something broader. Just like we've been saying throughout this segment, it's not just the person who's doing the deeds. It's the people who are co-signing for them. It's the people who are giving them credibility, lending them credibility. Let me tell you what, I do not hang out with crooks. I do not hang out with people who don't share my same moral views. Doesn't mean we don't, we have to agree on everything, but I just don't hang out with everybody.
No, but he didn't co-sign. What happened was, what happened was, let me tell you what happened. Lamar Whitehead reached out to Pastor Jamal Bryant, said he wanted to do his podcast, wanted to tell his side of the story. Whitehead had been doing all sort of interviews. I appreciated him doing the interview. Again, all he did was just make the U.S. attorney go, appreciate that, dog.
Mm-hmm. We're coming for you a little
one
earlier.
thing we can agree with, stop doing interviews when you're under investigation.
No, I want some people to talk. Because Whitehead exposed who he is, and he was running around talking about how tight he was with Eric Adams, and the text messages were revealed. Adams was like, stop invoking my name, trying to use my name. And so, bottom line is, Whitehead got busted for being a con artist. And guess what? He wanted attention. That's what he wanted. And he got it. But this is sort of like when Frank Lucas wore that chinchilla coat. He drew attention. Whitehead wanted social media attention. He wanted folks talking about his car and his flashy clothes, all that sort of stuff. And you know what he did? He put a big-ass spotlight on him, and the feds went.
That's exactly what happened.
He brought all the attention on himself. And so now he has 9 years to think about all of that attention. So
his house sold for almost $2 million. And if you remember, when he got robbed, that was a very small storefront church, from what I remember.
Come on.
How did he get all of this money? How is he wearing $1 million? And what does that say to the congregants? He might have had Jesus on his side, which I understand that, but then there's his own volition that got in the way, and he made the wrong decision over and over again. A woman in her 50s trying to buy a house, $90,000. He takes it. Meanwhile, he's in a house that's worth $2 million, and then said, I can't give you your money back. It's spent. Extorting people, saying that they will get more money. I needed to see him with Reverend Bryant talking himself into really his sentence. I think that judge was annoyed with him. 30 days sooner is when he got the sentence. He's supposed to be sentenced in July. She saw that video too. Everybody did, and I can appreciate it.
They saw the video and went, Gone. They literally said, go arrest his ass right now. So understand, when they pulled him in, they put his ass in jail. It wasn't like we're gonna move your sentencing up. No, he been behind bars since that interview. So, Pastor Bryant, appreciate the interview. All right, y'all. That's it. Joy, Larry, Candace, thank you so very much for joining us on today's show. I certainly appreciate it. To everybody out there, thank you so very much. Hey, YouTube people, y'all are lacking. Y'all should easily, we should be at 1,000 likes. I don't understand what the hell the problem is. Why y'all so slow? Hit the doggone like button, okay? By the time I'm done, okay, doing what I gotta do, we should be at 1,000 likes. Y'all tripping. Y'all commenting, but y'all ain't liking. All right, folks, be sure to support us in what we do. Join the Bring the Funk fan club. So you're checking money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Be sure to download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to also, folks, get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available bookstores nationwide. Folks, get it, of course, Ben Bella Books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Target. Get the audio version on Audible, which I did read. Folks, tomorrow I'm going to be in Los Angeles. The Netflix interviews for the movie Beverly Hills Cop, starring Eddie Murphy, will be taking place. I'll be there Thursday and Friday. So, I'll be coming live from LA tomorrow. Folks, that is it. I will see y'all right here. No, I'm sorry. My bad. I'm in LA Thursday. Tomorrow's Juneteenth. I am here tomorrow. I'm already thinking we already passed Juneteenth. So we will be live on Juneteenth, covering all the events that are happening all around the country. And so look forward to that. So y'all be sure to tune in tomorrow. A lot of you are going to have the day off. And so enjoy yourself. It's a heat wave in some parts. Be sure to drink lots of water. Wear your big ass hat. Put some sunscreen on. Or keep you behind indoors. And all right, that's it, folks. I'll see y'all tomorrow right here. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla! Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?